are. Again, welcome to everybody. This is the OutNow Wednesday webinar. We are going to be joined by Sunsara Taylor momentarily. Sunsara Taylor is part of the Get Organized for an Actual Revolution tour. She is a writer for revcom.us and is a co-founder of Refuse Fascism. And she's a member of the editorial board, along with Coco, who you'll hear from shortly, the refusefascism.org website. And I believe Sunsara is going to also introduce us to some of the crew that's live on the ground outside the Capitol in DC. So I'm going to hand it over to Sunsara. Keep sharing. It's really good. It's really good. Keep sharing it.
All right, well, thank you, Samantha, for getting us all set up. And like she said, please, wherever you're tuning in from, take a moment, share this video, this feed on Facebook, Twitter, invite people, text them the link. And let's grow the audience, because we need to grow this movement at this very critical time. I want to thank everybody who is tuning in, and I want to give a shout out to the volunteers here in DC who are in the room with us. We're broadcasting live from Washington, DC. Welcome. At the beginning, you heard somebody try to cheer and their voice was just not there because they've been doing a lot of yelling out in the streets. So that's what you heard. And we're going to bring some of them up in a little bit in the broadcast. If you're tuning in for the first time to one of these weekly OutNow webinars, or even if you've been with this for a long time, the OutNow movement was initiated by refusefascism.org, a movement of people from diverse political perspectives from across this country who are united in the common recognition that the Trump-Pence regime poses a catastrophic danger to humanity and to the planet itself. And that it is our responsibility from our different perspectives to work together with all our energy, creativity, determination, and conscience to drive this regime from power. And the only way it can be done by mobilizing the power of the masses of people, the tens of millions, the hundreds of millions in this country and around the world, but especially here, who must act, who hate what is being done, who hate what this regime is doing to immigrants, to women, to people at the border, the white supremacy they're whipping up, the environmental protections they're shredding, the war crimes, and the greater threats of war against the people of the world, who are opposed to all this and refuse to accept a fascist America, to go into the streets in nonviolent mass political protests that starts with hundreds, but doesn't stop there and doesn't do it just for one day, comes back week after week, becoming day after day, growing from hundreds to thousands to millions, and refusing to stop until we create such a political crisis that we force and compel the removal of this fascist regime and their whole program. This is the single mission, the reason we came together from different perspectives, and you'll hear about that too. And right now, and Coco Dawson, in just a moment, I'll introduce her. Right now, we're at a very pivotal time in this regime, the Trump-Pence regime, in the history of this country, and frankly, in the history of this world. There's a fascist regime aggressively fighting to consolidate their power, to knock down all political rivals, all the checks on their authority, all of the obstacles in their way, and to crush and destroy those they deem undesirable. They are, or the head of it, Donald Trump, is actually on trial right now. He was impeached. He's on trial officially over whether he should be removed from power. And this is a huge deal. It's a historic thing in the history of this country. It's only happened 3 times that a president has been impeached and faced trial. And there's tremendously high stakes. It's very important. Some of his crimes have been brought out and he's being tried for them. The whole host of crimes I mentioned a minute ago were not part of the impeachment. So it's a narrow basis on which he's being impeached, but it's very important, and it is an opening. And yet we all know that right now, the Republicans in the Senate, who control the Senate, who are the majority, who are fascists, are working hand in glove with Trump in lockstep to try to get him acquitted and to actually use this trial to further the advance of fascism in this country. So it's a high stakes moment where there's openings, but there's also danger. And there's a great urgency for us to get this message out and mobilize people now. So we're going to hear from Coco Das about the overall moment. I do want to say one more thing to frame this, and I'm going to come back to it through the course of this webinar. We are calling for mass organizing meetings this Sunday, very important, all over the country. Every chapter should be all out inviting everybody we've met over the last 3 years, everybody we've met in the last 3 weeks, since the impeachment vote in the House, since the war crimes against Iran and people in the streets around that, and who are stirring and restive right now with this impeachment going on, but who have not stepped forward to act. We need to call them together this Sunday, all over the country in emergency mass meetings. The people we've met and other organizations, everybody who stood up for immigrant rights, who stood up for refugees, who stood up for climate change, who stood up against war crimes. We need to call people together to meet and strategize, to really make every day of this Senate trial, but kicking into a higher gear next week, really across this country, demanding that witnesses be heard, demanding that the evidence be treated as evidence, demanding that he be convicted and removed from power, and bringing in the whole host of other crimes that we have a responsibility to speak for and make heard in this trial, and make heard before the people of the world, and be repudiated through our actions. So it's in this moment, when this is yet to be determined, that we could have outsized impact. And we've got to fight with all we've got to bring that out. So we're calling, again, for mass meetings on Sunday, everywhere, and for people to be mobilized to be in the streets next week, and to have to be announced emergency protests across this country the night before the vote in the Senate over whether they're going to have, or the debate over witnesses, so that we actually are impacting the political necessity of those who are making these decisions, and demanding that this not be a further consolidation of fascism, but a trial in which these crimes get dragged out into the light of day, and justice can actually be served through this. So we'll talk more about that, but I wanted to put that right up front. And with that, I want to invite Coco Das, who is the editor of the refusefascism.org website, one of the main contributors, an incredible writer, and a member of the editorial board, to kind of give some overall remarks on this moment and how we're understanding this. Coco.
Okay, thanks, Sunsara. Can everybody hear me? Is my
Yes,
sound okay?
great.
So it's great to be here with you all again. I've missed the last few webinars. So, you know, as Sunsara was talking, it is going to be a fight for people to understand what a critical moment this is, where an outpouring in the streets from even hundreds of people, then thousands, then millions, could actually change the whole equation. And, you know, I want to just step back a little and present some of the things at play, because there's a lot at play and there's a lot in flux right now. The Democrats have done something that they did not want to do, which was impeach Donald Trump. And they had to do that because of how egregious and blatant this move was in the Ukraine. He was essentially caught red-handed. And so right now there's this fierce battle between this Republican Party that's been hollowed out and thoroughly fascist, you know, in line behind Trump and Pence. And then there's a Democratic Party that is trying very desperately to hold on to the center and maintain the legitimacy and the norms of this republic. You know, if you think of how Hitler had to completely destroy the Weimar Republic, and, you know, especially going into the 2020 elections, their whole, you know, the line has been that the way to defeat Trump is through the 2020 elections. And then here's this situation where, you know, Trump is withholding aid to rig the elections. They would have appeared completely illegitimate if they had not made this move. On the other side right now, so in this fight, the Trump faction is making a mockery of this trial. They're doing everything they can to actually turn it into a sham trial. I mean, suppress witnesses, not have witnesses, suppress evidence, complete obstruction of Congress, which is not something that they think is a problem. This is actually part of how they want to rule. And they are really pushing to get away with as much as they can. And if that faction wins, the danger of locking in openly fascist rule in tandem with a completely fascist program of white supremacy, misogyny, America first, with the lunatic's finger on the nuclear trigger, this is the danger. But at the same time, there are openings, and it's not one-sided. And, this has been a struggle on the editorial board to understand this also. We've had a lot of talking and going back and forth. But this really is a moment to seize urgently, and we have to push very hard right now into these cracks and openings and do really sharp exposure on everything that's happening right now. There's the moves of this regime as openly thuggish and gangster is being exposed through this impeachment process. It's a wake-up call to a lot of people on the seriousness of the situation and the need actually and the possibility of removing Trump from power. We've actually have not come this close to the possibility of removing him from power in 3 years, not from when people discovered concentration camps, when people, were out in the streets over family separation, and all these things should have been moments. Charlottesville should have been a moment when people really en masse called for the removal of the regime, but this is what it is. And this is the closest we've come. And this is, they're being seen and called out as illegitimate. And that is something that we cannot ignore. We have to actually maximize the initiative of the people in this situation. There is a mood shift. People were reporting about how the OutNow slogans and chants were really deeply resonant at the women's marches and were taken up very widely and were not controversial. And in a lot of places, that actually did lead, significant numbers of people in the marches. And in the midst of that, where people actually are awakened to this hope and this possibility of this regime being in the rear view of history. In the midst of that, there was something that happened very significant in Virginia on MLK Day, which is that in Virginia, Democrats had won majority elections and had passed some gun reform laws. And on Martin Luther King Day, 22,000 people, some of them, if you've seen the pictures, dressed like they're ready for a civil war, dressed in complete, full paramilitary garb, descended on the Virginia State House, the worst of whom, and I think there's a live stream of the very brave people from Revolution Club who were the only people on the ground to confront this. But the worst of these people were calling their guns bug spray, saying, that's bug spray to eliminate the roaches of immigrants and, people that they oppose. And, everyone else there saying, being okay with that. And this was presented as a peaceful gathering. I mean, think of how that normalizes this complete, fascist, white supremacist, violent, intimidation of Black people, people know what this means. And that the fascism that represents made a big advance on Monday. And was not answered in nearly, with nearly the determination that it should have been answered, and was, mainly normalized and ridiculed a bit on social media, normalized through the media. And this is actually a concentration of one possible future that we're facing. And I think people need to really understand this better. This is all happening in the midst of this impeachment and on Martin Luther King Day. And then, we also know that there are sections of people like Black people and other people of color and immigrants, LGBT people, whose hatred of Trump is so deep and visceral. And, this Out Now message gives them such heart when you go into those communities and they hear that there's a force that is actually fighting to get this regime out of power. And that a lot of in those sections of people do not have the same illusions about the normal channels being the way to stop this fascism. So that is also something that I think people need to think about. The way that the Trump regime is fighting impeachment does lay bare the inadequacies of these norms and processes to deal with this crisis. When you can't actually enforce subpoenas, what does that tell you about the ability of those channels to stop this regime? When there's no actual ability to put a check on this regime from doing what it wants to do through this process, there was something in the New York Times today, Sunsara and I were talking about it earlier, where they interviewed 81 people or a certain number of people about impeachment. And a lot of people, there were comments in there about how they wished that the impeachment was about, a lot more of the crimes against humanity that this regime is carrying out. But, they'll take it because this is one way that they are able, that there is a possibility of removing the regime, but it is limited, and it is, there is a danger that these mechanisms are not going to be, are going to be shown to be not adequate to deal with the crisis at hand. And people are going to see that more and more through this impeachment process. And then there are still the 3 years of what this regime has done and how this has actually, people came out into the streets in December, right before the House impeachment vote. And it's, one of our writers, Sarah, kind of compared it to in a marriage, when you are having an argument and then it brings up all the other things, all the other grievances you have against your partner, sort of the same thing. For the first time in many, many months, people were out in the streets again, and they were full of outrage and full of desire to see the end of this regime. And that was opened up through the hope that this impeachment vote had brought about. And it's not that people completely have forgotten kids in cages and concentration camps and the planet-threatening environmental policies and what's been happening to LGBT people, but they have to be reminded. And this is a way to actually to continually bring up the whole program, the whole fascist program, and all the crimes of this regime so far, which we now have 3 years of evidence for. But it is also true that around impeachment right now, people are not in the streets in the numbers that they should be. And, on the Ed board, we've talked about some of the things holding people back, and you should look for a lot of content going up on the website and in social media that is going to try to address those obstacles, what's holding people back. But also, if people see people, I know in New York, you did an emergency demo today. The more they see people who are actually stepping out, it can help to inspire more people. But it is a fight. Even though there are all these things at play, it is a fight to get people to go from their understanding or from their fear or from their desire to see this end, to actually getting them out into the streets to demand OutNow. So the mass meetings that Sunsara mentioned are going to be really important. We should call everybody who has, call everybody out to them, and really let's put our heads together. If we lose this moment, it is a real danger that if we lose this moment, we are going to have a fascist president and his regime that is on a rampage, going forward with a vengeance, and sees themselves and has a precedent of being above the law. And this is a very dangerous situation, but it is also one of great opportunity. And the mass meetings and calling mass protests for next week, and following and really getting people to follow what's happening in DC on the ground too, it's all very important. And right now, actually, people who are tuning in should donate to the effort in DC to get more people there. I'm excited to hear from the people in DC, so I'm gonna wrap up now, but you can maybe Sam can tell you how to donate.
Sam, I'm going to let you, if you want to, or I can say real quick. This is how you donate. I actually have it on the screen. Here we go. Can you see that? There. I'll just read it. Donate to the OutNow movement. And Venmo,
donate at refusefascism.org or via Venmo, refuse-fascism. There we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam.
Beautifully.
There we go. So listen,
I'm sorry to cut you off. I want to shout out all the people who donated and helped meet the first benchmark. It cost about $10,000 to do this first week in DC. And many new donors stepped forward, and we're part of making that happen. So thank you to those who gave matching donations, who stepped forward, who gave $2, who gave $500. It was all very necessary, and now we need many more people to join them.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Okay. And one of the things we are calling on, in addition to protests the night before the debate over witnesses, we all know, or we should know, that the Republicans, Mitch McConnell and the rest of them, came in with very restricted, rigged, sham rules for this trial. And they are fighting to keep the witnesses, to keep the evidence out, to get this over quickly, and to legitimize the obstruction of justice and the abuse of Congress and the all-around fascism of this president and of the regime. So we are calling on people to be in DC as this is unfolding. We're doing nationwide mass meetings to get organized on a bigger level around the country, because people need to stand up wherever they are. But we're also calling on people wherever you are, and people watching, to come to DC and be here building protest on the ground where this is going down. 2 years ago, Michael Moore put out the suggestion that 1 million people come to DC and surround the White House. And that if we did this and stayed there, we could get him out of office. He was right. He didn't call for it. He just floated it. Okay, listen, it would make a difference if he called for it. But if ever there was a moment for that, this is that moment. This is that moment. He is on trial. Donald Trump is on trial. Ralph Nader said a similar thing. Called on people to come in mass numbers to DC. All over the world, people are doing this. All over the world, people are driving out hated regimes. It's happened over and over again. Last year, it was like a huge phenomenon. Every major publication doing a retrospective on 2019 globally, this was the #1 phenomenon they noted. This was a year of mass struggles to drive out regimes from below. 1 million people in the streets of Chile. people repeatedly over and over again in Lebanon, people in Hong Kong coming back day after police brutality. They'd come back with even more people in different neighborhoods. This has gone in Puerto Rico. They drove out their governor in 15 days, went from hundreds to hundreds of thousands. So it's not a mystery how this goes down. I want to say a couple things about the challenge we're up against. We're going to hear from the people who came here in a few minutes, and it's very important. And we're going to hear some about the mood as we've been going out around DC, and both those things are very important, but we have to be honest with ourselves and with each other. We need to move a lot more people. So we have to talk frankly about the challenge and the struggle we're having. And I want to say, look, something we have to confront and we have to lead others to confront is that this fascist regime, yes, it's on trial. Yes, there's an opening to get its removal right now. But no matter how this plays out, they are not going without a monumental, Herculean, massive struggle.
Right.
We're talking about a nonviolent struggle. Masses of people in nonviolent protest, but people need to get over the notion that this is going to be a painless process, that will make progress without struggle or sacrifice. And if you want to be honest, I think this is what a lot of people are shying away from, and why 2 years ago they called for protest, and today they're staying home and believing the delusion that maybe they can wait for 2020. Here's the news, okay? Number one, Donald Trump is being impeached for sabotaging the 2020 election, okay? Straight up. He blackmailed, extorted another country to destroy his political rival and ruin any chance at even a normal election. Now, as a communist and a revolutionary and an advocate for the new communism of Bob Avakian, and he's the one who wrote the book, Democracy, Can't We Do Better Than That? I don't believe in the bourgeois elections as the mechanism through which the will of the people has ever been given expression. I think those elections have always been a mechanism through which the people are ruled over by the system, and people are brought into debating on the terms of the rulers. Okay, so that's an important thing. But even if you believe in the bourgeois elections, Trump is caught red-handed, completely sabotaging them. Okay? Number two, he lost the last elections and he won the presidency anyhow. He lost by 3 million votes. You have that racist electoral college, which puts a big hurdle. You have gerrymandering. You have voter suppression. You have all of this. You think he's going to be voted out? Wake up. And then you have what he has said repeatedly, which is Donald Trump says, I've got the military. I've got the cops for Trump. I've got the bikers. I've got the rough guys. They're playing it nice now, but they don't have to. Well, in Virginia on Monday, on MLK Day, 22,000 of them came with their MAGA flags, their automatic weapons, their military-style uniform. They came talking about a race war, a civil war, establishing a genocidal ethno-state. And they were cheering for Trump. And they were outside the perimeter of this emergency zone where the Democratic governor said guns could not be brought in by the Capitol because there were credible threats of violence against the state legislators. And outside the gate, you had mobs of these white supremacists, yes, talking about their automatic weapons as bug spray to use against immigrants who they were calling roaches. Yes, talking about all kinds of hideous lynchings and other kinds of things, but also chanting and holding up their guns and saying, we will not comply. Okay, you think they won't comply with a mild gun control restriction, which again, I'm not for even that gun control restriction. We don't have a position as Refuse Fascism on that, but I'm not for the restriction. But these people are saying they won't comply with a mild gun control restriction. You think they'll comply with losing an election? You think they'll comply with Trump being impeached and removed? They are preparing. They are fighting with passionate intensity, and people have to face this reality. It is going to be a fight on our side. But somebody said this who went to one of the Revolution Club members who went to Virginia yesterday made this point. People need to stop having so much fear for themselves and start being motivated by their terror of what this fascism will mean for humanity if we don't stand up while we still have a chance. And we've got to go to people, and we've got to disabuse them of the illusion, the delusion that they can sit back now and just root for justice to be carried out. You see before your eyes a regime that is not complying with the legal impeachment process, that is whipping up a base that is there ready to not comply with a legitimate election, to not comply with restrictions on this fascist authority. Okay, so we are going to have to go outside those channels that they are refusing to respect. We are going to have to act with the power that has not yet been brought to bear, which is the power of the people from below. And this is urgent. And I think what Coco was saying about there is a mood shift, there is, and people are we're going to talk about this and get some of the texture of the outings we've been having. People are disturbed. People are agonizing, but they're sitting back. There's not a lack of concern, but there is a misdirection and a passivity that has to be broken. And so this, come to DC to be here. There's an advanced crew of volunteers who are going and stirring up the city, who are in front of the Senate every day. But we need to be building this. We need to bring hundreds right very quickly to DC. And then we need to get thousands. And we need to fight with all we've got to bring the people out now while it counts. And to challenge them and struggle with them. Really sharply. Michael Moore last night said, he was on Seth Meyers, and he said, I have confidence we can get Trump removed. Oh, I know they're trying to rig the impeachment, but we're going to get him out. We're going to get him out. And Seth Meyers was, how are you going to do that? They're rigging the trial. And Michael Moore goes, oh no, I got a scheme. And he walked through all this rigmarole about how they're going to ask John Bolton the magic question and get the beans spilt on Trump and convince these Christian fascist senators to answer to their God, a higher power, and do the right thing. It was delusional. And then Seth Meyers kind of looked at him like he was being delusional. And Michael Moore said, no, there's a way we're going to make this happen. And so he said, all you people watching in America, I want you to take out your phone and call your senator. Okay, it's not a time to call your senator. It's a time, you go ahead and call your senator. It's a time to flood the streets, not the phone lines. Mm-hmm. It's a time to come into the streets, okay? Yeah. And so we've got to go to people like Michael Moore. And I'm saying this because I want him to be his best self, not because, oh, I feel self-satisfied to call him out. And we're doing the right thing. We're in the streets and he's not, oh, good on us. That's not the point. We have to move people like him. Yeah. We have to move other people. And everybody watching this, look, one of the things that comes up all the time, people don't like to challenge other people. It takes you out of your comfort zone. Okay, I can stand up, I can do something, but who am I to tell them to do something? Okay, we have to struggle with people right now because it's not about your opinion and your thing, telling them what their thing is. This is about us fighting for humanity. And if we don't do it, nobody is going to do it. If you are silent on challenging people to stand up when humanity's future is at stake, you are letting humanity's future be destroyed. And it's not personal. It's not a favor. It's not an imposition. It is a struggle for the future of humanity, okay? So we all have to go out there and we have to spread the word because there are people who are agonizing. There are people who care. We have to challenge them if they're not acting right. We have to struggle with them, but we also have to invite them. And they don't all have to be Refuse Fascism. They don't have to join this movement. Many more should. We should grow this movement. Many more should join the revolution. You should learn about the revolution and join with the revolution that we're building at revcom.us. Many more should join other movements that are part of this, okay? But you don't have to be part of these things to say in the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America, to say that if fascism gets consolidated in this country, any desire, any future you want to see goes out the window. So this is the moment to come out and fight to demand out now. It really is. And to build up the strength in the organization across the country to see this through what will be a ferocious struggle. This won't be like Puerto Rico. It won't be 15 days in the streets that are peaceful and then he resigns. Again, we're being nonviolent, but there are people out there organizing to do great harm and already doing great harm. Mass shootings of immigrants and Jewish people, other things like this. We've got to stand up. And then we've got to see this struggle through. Otherwise, that is the future. But a different future is possible. So we're in this struggle. So this is why we have to invite very broadly and very aggressively. And with a what do you call it, a spring in our step, because there's actually a moment right now to seize. There's vulnerabilities of the regime right now to seize. We should invite everybody to these mass meetings this weekend. We should send everybody we can, including you watching, come to DC. Volunteer and get your butt down here. We'll work out housing, apply, raise the money to support yourself, get your chapter to support you, or go put up a GoFundMe, tell people what you're doing, and come to DC and be with us every day in front of the Senate and every day fanning out around the city, rallying more people. That's what we are doing. And donate very much and raise money for the people who are in DC. We're going to hear from them in just a minute, but I do want to come back to the donations. It has cost more than $10,000 already since we've been here. It costs money. We have sound systems. We have people to feed. We have people to get around the town. We've got materials to print and get out tens of thousands of pieces of literature all over the city. We've got a lot of costs to do an operation where everybody is away from home, living in not luxurious conditions, but it still costs money, and people are putting their whole hearts into this. They need to be supported. So I want to ask people, give $100 tonight. I would like us to raise $1,000 on this webinar, and I would like us to together actually go out this week and raise $5,000 by this weekend to support these volunteers and expand this effort. So not only donate yourself, but think about who you can go to and share this live stream with and tell about this project and ask them to donate as well. And then the last thing before we bring up our guests, 100,000 is needed by January 31st. I'm getting an update from the people who really pay attention to the bottom line, okay? Very important work. Otherwise it grinds to a halt. And this has to grow right now, not grind to a halt. We need serious donations. So donate.refusefascism.org. donate.refusefascism.org. If you can give $100 right now, please do. If you can give $500 right now, it is worth it. If you can give $5 right now, that really counts. If we had 100 people watching right now, each give $5, that would make a big difference. And then you can go to people who have $10,000 or $20,000 they can give, and you could say, look, there's hundreds of people who've given small donations to help make this happen. There's feeling and a movement behind this. Put it over the top. The more small donations you have, the easier it is to get the big donations and vice versa. So please make a donation. We just got a $25 donation from Bill and a $10 donation from Kelly. Thank you, and I want to see more donations getting posted as we go. So the last thing I was going to say is the night before, look, we're going to be in front of the Senate every day here in DC. But we are calling for protests here at a bigger level all over the country the night before the vote or the debate on witnesses, because we want to influence that. They need to hear the witnesses. We had a plan in the original plan for the month for big OutNow contingents at the anti-war protests this weekend. This is still important, but honestly, the world and the central contradiction, it's not that the contradiction of and the danger of war with Iran has subsided, but it's not the most concentrated front question of the day at this point with him on trial and the way it's unfolded. So we want to be at those protests. We still want to bring contingents to them. If people should get out there and get out now and recruit and organize and strengthen those. But really the most important thing is these mass meetings and then the work next week to be in the streets, especially here in DC. So with that, I want to bring up, okay, so we got a schedule. I'm getting a prompt. Okay, so we're going to bring up some of the people who have come to DC from out of town. One of them came as an organizer with Refuse Fascism, and two of them, no, you guys too, all of us at once.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Oh, go ahead.
Trump, Pence, out now. Trump, Pence, out now.
Okay, you guys can hear that. We have enthusiasm in the room. We got all our volunteers. That was a brother who's going to leave in the morning who came in. There will be. Come sit. There will be. Trust me. Trust me, we'll make it work. So here's who we have, okay? We're going to make it work. It always works. We have, at the end, starting at the end, Eclipse, who, if you've been a regular Wednesday OutNow webinar watcher, you've met her in the past. She's from Los Angeles. She just got in today and is volunteered to come here to DC, and she's going to say some of why.
Basically, I'm here because this is one of the most important times in history to be in DC. I mean, we have the impeachment trial going on, and if it goes our way, Trump will be removed. A lot of people are just thinking about this in terms of his presidency, but the impact that this could have for the rest of American history is huge, and I cannot overstate that. So that's why I'm here.
Very good.
Right.
And we have Chaz, who we met out in front of the Senate the other day and has been rolling with the crew. And you shared quite a bit about why you decided to come.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, basically, I'm just an average guy from Indiana. I got a John Deere and I drive a Jeep Wrangler. And I realized quite quickly that democracy is under attack. Mitch McConnell is slaughtering democracy, 2 miles away from us at this exact moment in time? It's absurd that we have all just become so complacent. I know there are plenty of people out there who care and are just doing nothing. And they are worse than Trump supporters. The people who are doing nothing are worse because they could be doing something, and they have the knowledge to know. They have the knowledge to know that this is wrong, but they've just become disillusioned. They bury themselves in their phones, the TV. I was one of those people at one time too. I just figured eventually the government would take care of it. Justice would prevail, but justice is under attack. There will be no justice for Donald Trump if we, other people, do not get here to Washington and do something. Tell them, show them that we are still here. We are not blind, and show them that they will do this, or we will make them do this, because the Senate is failing us. And I am personally tired of it.
Yeah. All right. And so, Nick, you also came out from Indiana.
Yeah, we actually rode together. So,
yeah.
But basically, it's the same reason as everybody else here in this room. I'm tired of sitting around and watching everything in this country go to crap. Mm-hmm. In my personal opinion, like you said earlier, if there ever was a time to strike, you're correct. It's right now. Right now is when it means the most, and it's not just for individual parties or anybody's individual beliefs. It's for everybody as a whole. They're in America right now. We can't let this happen. We can't let the House divide itself. We have to stick together, and we have to stand up to fascism, because that's exactly what it is. And there's no way around it right now. There's no other way to look at it. And if you don't see it that way, then you are obviously brainwashed, and you need a good talking to, as my dad would say.
All right. So listen.
People are good talking to.
There you go. That's what we're talking to. So, listen, I want to thank you guys for coming in and getting off your couch and coming down to DC. I think this is reflective of a lot of the sentiments in a lot more people, but we have to reach them. And most people, you guys came here without knowing there was anything being organized to stand up against this.
I was incredibly disappointed when I seen how few people were out here, considering that we drove overnight, didn't sleep, and we walked up to the Capitol building half asleep, but we were ready to stand for this. And there was almost no one there, and it was almost heartbreaking, because as much as I did, as much as he did, as much as we cared, I thought, gosh, as little as we have cared up until this point, surely most people are already there and ready, and we're kind of behind. But no, we're not. We're at the front of this, it seems like, with all of you, and that's terrifying. It is absolutely terrifying to me.
We're watching government fail, and people are done nothing.
The government is not only failing, it is purposely misleading. It's not failing, it is misleading the public intentionally. That's which is worse.
So what I would like to do, I want to thank you guys for coming. I know we're going to keep rolling together out in the city and in front of the Senate, but I want to invite Emma up and let you guys sit back in the audience. I want to keep Eclipse up here. Let's give them a round of applause. I want to thank Richard for the $50 donation, and thank CS for the $25 donation. And I want to remind everybody, whoops, this is Eclipse. I want to remind everybody behind Eclipse's head is the donate. Donate.refusefascism.org. Donate.refusefascism.org. Please give a donation right now, or on Venmo, you can do Venmo at refuse-fascism, at refuse-fascism, maybe while we're talking. Samantha can tally our donations that we scoot in just a little bit, we've gotten so far.
Get close.
And what I would like to do is just talk a little bit more about the mood and how it's been going, give people a sense of the work we've been doing and what they are supporting by donating and why they need to go out and, why you, not they, why you need to go out. Oh, thank you, TB, for $50. Why we need to together go out and get a lot more people to donate and a lot more people to come to DC and to amplify the work that is going on here in DC. So I want to start with you, Emma. You came down from New York, and I know you've been out every single day out among the people here in DC, and just share a little bit about the mood and how it's going.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a very visceral response, especially from Black people, but also all different kinds of people, especially and young people. Like we would get on the trains in certain areas and young people would just start jumping up and down, young Black people saying, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. Mm-hmm. And that very visceral feeling that it's time for him to go is very apparent. My voice is gone because we've been chanting at different times. People would come on the bullhorn and chant with us, Trump, Pence, out now. Every day, and people chanting. This has become a little bit of a theme song in certain parts of the city. Every day at the Capitol, calling on people to come with us and join. So,
your singing doesn't sound very good, Emma,
it's
right
not
now.
very good. It was great.
I know the crew sounds great, and you can see it on Twitter and Facebook. This video, but you're singing at this moment only.
So that's been, I mean, we ran into people from different parts of the world who were saying why aren't American people in the streets, including my Uber driver who said, he was really glad that we were doing what we were doing. He says, I get so embarrassed because people all over the world come into my car and I have to answer for the fact that the American public isn't doing anything. And so he's like, well, call me if you need a ride anywhere. There's people who, at the copy shop, we went and printed our copies. He was like, I love you guys. Can I take you guys to lunch, to go have tacos? What can I do? Here's $25,
Free copies.
And they've given us discounted copies, as part of that. So it's part of that support is really important and is an indicator of the kind of people out there who are rooting for this, who want to see us happen, who want to see us win. And also there's a professor who came with us who's been outside the Capitol, who he wrote a letter canceling class because he says he said he thought about calling in sick, but he wanted to actually tell the truth, that he wasn't calling in sick. He felt that this was an emergency to be out in front of the Capitol because of Trump being impeached. And so those kinds of things, that there are people out there who are sensing the danger of this. I mean, just today too, we met somebody who said, oh, have you guys been having trouble? Okay,
We're all
sorry.
with
Just
you.
very excited.
No, I know. We're with you. It's good. Just take it. Go ahead.
Thanks. Okay, so just part of it, I'm talking fast because I'm scared my voice is gonna
Just take your time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So we met somebody at when we were out and about on the trains, and we told them about how we've been having trouble with our permit, which basically, the police have told us that we can't stand in front of the Capitol, even though there are other people who are standing in front of the Capitol, and it's obviously they're targeting political speech. They said, oh, you can't be on this sidewalk with the bullhorn, but then there were Christian fundamentalists and Trump supporters out on the sidewalk with bullhorns. They didn't have a permit. And so we were talking to a woman about us being out there, and she's like, well, I know so-and-so who works at the permit office. You tell her that I sent you, and that actually matters, that we're meeting people like that. We've met people who actually work in the Capitol, who said they're taking stickers and putting them up in the bathrooms, these kinds of things. So this kind of support is really important.
I think it is important, and it indicates, look, there's a lot of indicators on the mood and the potential. And things like this matter a lot. It also, people, you're not going to, I think Raphael said this the other day, you're not going to drive out the regime with cups of coffee and free coffee because you're wearing the OutNow t-shirt or a little help here or there. It is part of it, It's a very important thing, and it's a very important indicator. And I'm not for telling the person putting the stickers inside the Capitol or somebody giving you free coffee, I don't want your coffee, you gotta get out in the streets. But I'm not for being narrow towards people who are supporting, but we have to be real with people. We really have to be real with people. We are not doing this because it's our fucking thing. We want a good protest. We would love some hot chocolate while we're at it. I mean, it's not what it's about. It actually is. Look, this week on Friday, Donald Trump is going to be the first U.S. president in American history to come and speak in person at the anti-abortion March for Life, which really is a march for female enslavement. Mm-hmm. That really is what it is. These people are about criminalizing all abortion in all circumstance for all women. They're against birth control. They don't give a damn about babies, okay? They don't give a damn about life. This has never been about that. Fetuses are not babies. This is about control over women. And Donald Trump is going to be there. And they've got a majority now in the Supreme Court, okay, of Christian fascist types and fascists in general. And they are challenging Roe v. Wade. Today is Roe v. Wade, the anniversary. They had 200 legislators, U.S. legislators, write to the Supreme Court and insist that they reconsider the Roe v. Wade decision. Okay, we have like a perfect storm of fascism. It is mounting and reaching critical mass. Australia is on fire. Trump is ripping up environmental protections. You have the Virginia rally that just made a leap in normalizing and getting the public to accept fascist, paramilitary, race war, civil war, reactionary. These are people, as Bob Avakian has said, there's a direct line from the Confederacy to the fascists of today, and he made the point that the people you see at these Trump rallies, and this definitely applies to the people who are in the streets of Virginia, are the same kind of people who would have been gathering in picnics to watch the lynchings of Black people and snap postcards and send them around. If people watch The Watchmen on HBO, a lot of people learned about the Tulsa race riot, the brutality, the barbarity.
It's a phenomenal show.
It is a good show. But if people watch that and learned about this, or you could read The American Crime that digs up this history at revcom.us, these are the kinds of people who are itching for that. This is not an abstract, distant concept. And the March for Life is the people who are going to impose a real life Handmaid's Tale. This is not abstract, this is real lives. And this is all coming together. You think about any one of these things would be a monumental stop everything moment for people to stand up. And it's coming, it's converging. And then you have the trial of Donald Trump, and you have him and the fascists around him threatening, every day threatening those who are coming and insisting that he be constrained by the rule of law. Okay, this is a very dangerous. If they get through this, we're not hyping people. If they get through this, this is a horror for humanity. Now, we're not giving up if we don't drive them out through this impeachment. But we are better fight to make a real fucking advance through this impeachment. There's a chance and a possibility of actually creating conditions where he could be removed. And we should push with all we've got right now for that. And B, if we don't get him out through this round, we better have made advances in building up the organized strength. We had better never see again a fascist mobilization, not even of tens of thousands, but even hundreds, that is met by a handful. Courageous. I'm not down on them. I am so proud of them, of the Revolution tour that went there, but they were the only ones. Come on. Mm-hmm. Don't tell yourself that you don't like this shit if you're going to sit home as it's going on. Don't say I'm not with it. You're with it. You're collaborating with it. If you're sitting at home, you're fucking collaborating. Period. And we have to understand that, and we have to tell people that. We have to be honest with them, not to jack them up and shame them, but to move them, okay? We have to be honest about this. So this, I feel, it's very important what you're describing of the mood. And I was going to ask you too, you went out today. I know you just got here, if you want to share some of the texture. And this is why it's so important that there's volunteers here on the ground in DC to go and rally this sentiment, but also to move it. We've got to fight for it to become manifest. And we are in a battle, and everybody on the webinar is in this battle with us through your donations, but also through taking this out. We have to go out to the masses in a huge way. What Coco said at the beginning about there being a shift in mood right now is real. That is real, but it's not enough. It doesn't do our work for us. It gives certain favorable openings for us to do our work, but we better struggle because we better seize this opening. So go ahead and anything you want to reflect on the day out today.
So I just got in DC today. I went out and went and spread out the OutNow message on trains today. And I noticed what you noticed among youth, there's a lot of excitement. A lot of them didn't seem to know that there was a movement to get Trump and Pence out of office, which is alarming. That is alarming that people don't know this is a thing. But I felt like there's a lot of apathy, which is incredibly frustrating. One thing I've noticed that there's a lot of is when people talk about Nazi Germany, they talk about this fantasy of if they went back in time, that they would be this hero that would go into the concentration camps and break the Jews out of the concentration camps, and they would be the savior. But those same people are continuing with their lives like business is norm as usual. I think about, like, for example, The Man in the High Castle, how it's fascism in America and the parallels to how real it is to this, what's going on right now. And people look at that and they're horrified, right? Because it's Nazi Germany. But they look at what's happening now, even when it's America, when it's under an American flag, and they think it's fine. And then it's the same bullshit. Excuse my language, but it's the same thing. It's the same tyranny. And if people are going to claim that they would do something in the face of fascism, they should be fighting right now. Where are all those people?
Mm-hmm.
Don't claim that you would fight. Don't claim that you would do something if you're just going to sit at home, if you're just going to give us a thumbs up. Because a thumbs up does not do anything for us, for the country, for the planet which this country is destroying bit by bit, and which in just a few decades will have been consumed to a level that is unimaginable to what we have experienced in history before. So I noticed a lot of apathy among people, a lot of just thumbs ups, because I don't know if it's because they don't get the larger picture, if they don't see what's at stake right now. I don't understand how. Like, for me, it's obvious. To me, it's blindingly obvious, but I guess it's just because I'm involved with this. Although it was blindingly obvious to me before I started doing this. I guess the biggest thing is people are apathetic, and we need to fight to break that apathy free. I'm doing the best I can. Mm-hmm. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm in DC. But that's the biggest problem I see, honestly.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask, I want to let everybody know we have raised $395 in this webinar. So I want to thank everybody who's given.
Thank you.
It
helps so much.
It does help so much. I also want to ask you, we have just a few minutes left. I'm gonna ask Emma one more question, and then we're gonna hear from Coco Das. We're gonna wrap up pretty soon. So we have just a few more minutes that we're gonna be on this live stream together. So don't miss your chance to bring this number higher, the donation number higher while we are live. It really matters. It materially is essential. The funds are essential. And you are joining a community of people who are standing up and saying, hell no. We have a comment from somebody who says, remember, the people hosting protests in their communities all over the country matter just as much as the DC actions. And I just want to say it matters wherever you are to stand up this week. That is true. Wherever you are, people need to be in the public square. And we're calling for emergency protests nationwide. The night before, whatever day it may be, the New York Times is predicting maybe Friday next week, they're going to debate witnesses, whether to hear witnesses. Maybe it'll be sooner because there's a lot of contingency in this trial. The Democrats have 3 days to present their case, but they don't have to use all 3 days. Odds are they will, but they might not. Republicans have 3 days to rebut. They might not choose to do that. They might just do one big showcase grandstand bravado. They don't have that much evidence. I don't know what they're going to say for 3 days. They might take all 3 days. They might not. The law requires that they have 6 days of trial a week, every day except for Sunday. I don't know why that law was written, but that's the way it is. So they're going to be all day Saturday, not on Sunday, then on Monday. We don't know how long each of these steps will take. Then they have objections and questions about what they heard. And then if I understand it correctly, then they have debate over witnesses. And then either that comes to a close because they don't have witnesses, or they have witnesses, in which case a whole lot of other shit gets in play, which would be much better. Both because more shit would get in play in the trial, and because it would protract this period where people could be drawn forward. So the night before they debate and decide on witnesses, we want to have emergency protests nationwide. And it does matter, it's nationwide. At the same time, let's be real, this is Washington, D.C. This is where it is going down. People do need, there's a reason why 2 years ago, Michael Moore said, let's circle the White House with 1 million people. There's a reason why all over the world, when people stand up, they go to the seat of power.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And here we do need people to come to the seat of power. And this is a city that overwhelmingly hates Donald Trump, okay? So there are people to turn out here. So coming and volunteering here and standing up here really matters, but also being here to mobilize others really matters. So I want to invite Emma to speak to this $395 and see if you have anything to say that would help move people to move that number higher.
Well, I mean, I think one thing is that this is a chance that we have to change the course of history. You know, there are moments where what we do really matters, and this is a moment to seize, and there is a shift that's happening. And part of what we're doing is we are going to people and having them reckon with what they somehow, with some of what they already know, that there is a very serious change happening in the way that society is being governed. There was a sobering confrontation that people had to confront, I think, in seeing what happened in Richmond, Virginia. But the fact that we're going to people with a way that we could actually do something about it, that's the thing that we are bringing, that there is a way that we could do this. There is a way that we could actually unleash the power of the people. All the millions of people who came out at the inauguration for the Women's March, come back out to DC.
That's right.
You know? But we can't do that without funds. Funds is one of the biggest things standing in our way to be able to reach all the people in Indiana who, you know, all the people who are in the surrounding metro areas, to get out to the high school students. Funds are one of the biggest ways that we have to actually reach people. Imagine if we can put out ads on social media targeting all of the young people and people who are feeling the danger of this and wondering if there's anything that they can do, that there is, like what you were saying, a movement to get with and to join, and that there is, I mean, give it your all right now, you know, give it your all. Give a donation that hurts, you know, and then go tell your friends to go and give something that matches your donation, because there's nothing more important that you can give money to. And one thing that I heard from the when we've been out on the ground, and one of the things that we've been hearing from people is that a lot of the people who should be there are not here because they're out campaigning for different candidates. Now, people are pouring a lot of money into the Democratic candidates, okay? But how are you going to have any kind of candidate that you want if fascism consolidates, when you have Trump who says that he is not going to leave office? So if you're giving $10, $20, $30 to Bernie Sanders, match that, because you're not going to get Trump out of office if you sit back and wait until the elections. There has to be, if you're going to go out and campaign, okay, do that. But right now, we have to campaign to get people in the streets now, because there can be a time when it is too late. I mean, he said on the campaign trail, you know, telling people to go at inciting violence. What do you think that these 20,000 people are going to do if Bernie Sanders wins the election? You think they're just going to sit at home? This is what they're preparing for. They're preparing for anybody who is not Donald Trump to take it as a coup. So whatever money that you're giving to the Democratic Party, give as much or more to us now, because whatever party you're supporting, or whether you think we need a revolution, whatever it is, none of those futures are going to happen unless we drive this regime out now. Seize the time, seize the moment. You don't want to say, I mean, I just think, I won't talk more than this, but there's this part in that movie, Schindler's List, where he's looking back at all the things he could have done, the different, how much money he could have spent to hide Jews and to save Jewish people's lives. You don't want to look back and say you wish you would have given more, you know, when you had the chance. And don't do it for me or for any of these volunteers. Do it for the children that have been separated from their parents, and they're never going to see them again because they don't know who their parents are, because they don't even keep track of all of this. Do it for the future of young people who aren't going to have a planet to live on because of all the environmental destruction that's accelerating. Do it for the future of humanity. How much can you give for the future of humanity? And how much do you want to see this white supremacist, pussy-grabbing fascist out of office?
Yeah.
That's my pitch.
I want to emphasize that if any of you can get to DC, it is critically important that we have as many people here as possible. There is a disappointingly small amount of people in DC protesting right now. Tell your friends, tell your coworkers, tell your family, tell anyone you know that is maybe in the DC area that can get here, that they need to be here right now, because we are not exaggerating the fact that being physically here is one of the most important things that you could do for the course of history, for the course of the history, for the planet, of this country, of the future, of the children, of the world. Try to get here.
All right, I'm for that. Okay, so to donate, to act on what Emma just said, it's donate.refusefascism.org. It's donate.refusefascism.org. I'll keep that in the screen right there. And on Venmo, it is at refuse-fascism. You can donate on Venmo at refuse-fascism. I believe that we just got 3 $50 donations, one from Leah. Thank you, Leah. One from Mandy and Norman. Thank you there. And one from CF. Thank you very much. And so we are now at $595, which is really good.
Yes.
All right. So we got a volunteer from Chicago who's been here a few days, who is cheering especially loudly. He has to leave tomorrow and we're going to miss him. But we need more people coming down. He's going to go make it happen in Chicago.
Yes, I am.
So one technical thing for you, and then I'm going to, Coco, if you want to come back on screen, I'd like to invite you to make any closing comments or reflections. As you do, I want to let folks know that if you are donating on Venmo, you can just skip the part that says input 4 digits of the phone number. Apparently, you don't need to, you can just skip that step. And Theodore sent in $20. Thank you, Theodore. We're now over 600, we're at $615. So Coco, talk to us.
Okay, well, I'd like people to keep donating while I'm talking, but I wanted to say, sort of jump off of what Emma and Eclipse were saying. Wherever you're right now, this is the time to go to everybody, with the importance of being in the street right now to demand Trump Pence out now. You know, there are people who don't know that there is a movement like this. And, you know, what difference could it make if the people who don't know, you know, how there's a certain number of those people who will come and join us. There are a lot of questions that we're trying to speak to that of other things that are holding people back, people who think this acquittal is a done deal. The biggest thing I think that we have to do is really give people a picture, show people what difference it could make when, with this impeachment battle roiling at the top of society, with these divisions going on, this big fight, if people stop being spectators and actually got in the field to change the game. And right now, too many people are treating this as a spectator sport. I just want to call on everybody to get, however you're fighting for this. If it's, you know, someone's going to be going to Ted Cruz's office, take this out now. Demand, take this out now, hashtag. Let's really spread that. Really look at the articles on refusefascism.org. We have a couple of really good ones that came up today. We're trying to do really short, quick interventions that can help you when you're out. And what we really need to do is, in a living way, give people a picture of what needs to happen, and very quickly. So with that, I want to say I'm so happy to be seeing the crew in DC every day. I'm going to be following all day on social media and struggling with everybody I know to support this effort in these next 2 weeks. It's really important, and it is very urgent. So so thank you all.
Thank you, Coco.
All right,
Thank you.
Okay, so I want to give an update. It is, and thank Emma for, not the Emma you saw on screen, but some other Emma, another Emma, thank you for donating $50. We're now at $665. Please keep giving all evening and spread the link. We're going to put it on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram and ask you to share it. That gives the link to donate. And if you could just take it, share the link and tell people, I just gave $20. If you gave $20 or I gave $50, here's why, and please join me in doing the same. We have people in DC, they need to be supported. This work needs to go forward. And if you can come to DC, come to DC. I just want to end by reiterating the key things, the take home, the marching orders, the things we all have to work on together. This weekend, there are anti-war protests happening across the country on Saturday. We should get out to them anywhere we can. We should be among them. We should spread out now. And we should strengthen that demand, no war on Iran. That's very important. It's positive. At the same time, the principal effort that we need to be making right now, the main effort, if we're organizing people beyond our cores, if we have to make hard choices and we can't do everything and people can't come to everything, we should really call on them to come to the mass meetings this Sunday. And we have to organize them. And we're going to share some orientation, some guidance for people leading those meetings to pull people together and really talk about the moment that we're in. The dangers, the openings and opportunities, and the need to confront and find our courage and our backbone and our wherewithal. If we want others to be strong and stand up, we have to be strong and stand up, and we have to lead them and struggle with them to do that. And we have to have very broad arms and invite in everybody who can under their own banner, under their own, however they want to come into it, but with the demand that Trump be removed now, that the witnesses be heard, that the whole regime must go, that these crimes against the people of the world and against humanity and the future be stopped. And we're the force that has to stop them. And so we've got to wage that struggle and get people together on Sunday. Then next week, we're going to be in the streets across the country. I want to give a shout out to the New York crew that did an emergency protest. I'm here today. And even more of a shout out because some of the leaders in their chapter are down here in DC and they really stepped up and rose to the occasion and did it very well. We saw it on social media. It was very important. There needs to be this going on all over the country next week. In DC, we are going to be in front of the Senate every single day. But then we are going to, as soon as it's announced, and we're going to be following the trial as it develops, as soon as it's announced and as soon as we have some reasonable expectation that we know what day there's going to be a debate over witnesses, we are going to pull out all the stops and start building the word now, where people are joining a Facebook event, making a commitment and a pledge online, joining an emergency response network, that when this night before that comes, before the debate on witnesses, we're going to have mass protests. And we got to move the indivisibles and the move-ons and all the people and the Michael Moores and the Ralph Naders and Patty Arquette, who said a very great thing at the awards ceremony recently. We get to go to a lot of people with big platforms and with social following to use their influence right now to call people out into the streets. So we've got to fight for that ourselves, but we've got to fight for others to join us in that. And we'll be in touch. Like Coco said, read the website every day. There's good stuff coming out, refusefascism.org. Please keep donating, donate.refusefascism.org, Venmo @refuse-fascism. And we will be back next Wednesday for our Out Now webinar. Thank you.